how this intensity is becoming an addiction for many people. Now, when I came into the church, I actually remember the first prayer meeting that we had. And it was what defined prayer for me. No one ever talked about how to talk to the Lord. I just saw it exampled in front of me. Now, I was 9 years old when I first came to church, and it was an indelible mark on my mind. Okay, it was a small building, it was a room full of women and a few men, but man, they turned the volume up. I mean, you got knee cushions. Almost everybody had knee cushions. It had thin carpet, concrete floors, and there were boxes of Kleenexes everywhere. And the voices began, and when they began to yell out until that place was literally vibrating with such an intense atmosphere. I'm talking we put a ball game to shame. And if it got quiet, someone would stand up and they would begin to cheerlead the group, and sometimes even dig down deep, like, come on, we need to touch God. We need to go after God. We need to have a move of the Holy Ghost. So it was always, we needed to touch God. God needed to come down. We needed to have a move of God. And that really worked well for me, actually, as a young boy. I was built for intensity. Now, I'm certainly not downplaying what happened there in those prayer meetings, but they did teach me that this is how you touch God. Now, when I say touch God, I'm putting that in parentheses, right? This is how you have a move of God. You've heard these terms, okay? This is what it means for the Lord to show up. Okay, this was a move of the Spirit. Now, I was trained that I had to generate intensity to reach God. Like God's interaction with me was based on my performance in prayer. So it was almost like God was out here, okay, and I was down here, and I had to engage God. And when I engaged for prayer, I didn't start out with God. I would begin to pray, and then during prayer, getting God to come down or getting God to move was something that I had to produce. So I had to earn his presence. Volume was actually evidence that I was praying. If my volume went up, then I was praying. Emotion was proof that I actually had connected to God. Like if I didn't have emotion, I had not connected to God. And then, of course, demonstration became validation. That's what it was. And I had to pray hard. Pray hard. That was actually a theme, I believe. Pray hard. Pray until something happens. Push. Great acronym. Really just just push it out the roof, right? So I didn't touch God unless I was emotional enough. Did I break through? That was the question. Did I really have a breakthrough? So intimacy was turned into a task, and it was the avenue. Intensity was the avenue, but intimacy was the task. So that's what intimacy was. It was that intensity that led you into a place where now you're having an emotional experience. And here was the challenge. If intensity equals connection, then calm actually equaled distance. And so we would look at people that were calm as if though they were disconnected. They were not connected to God. They were kind of staunch, or maybe even, rebellious, or just disconnected. So you could quiet prayer felt like a failure. That's what it feels like. People who prayed quietly, well, that was an oxymoron. There's no such thing. The presence of the Lord wasn't actually present unless you could feel him. And if a lot of people felt him or felt whatever at the same time, then that was called a move of God. I mean, people would literally walk away and say, man, that was a powerful move of God. and as though. So what happened with me was I started chasing spiritual highs. I would feel like a failure when I couldn't produce those intense experiences. And only those intense highs were any proof that I was actually getting a hold of God. You know, you got to get a hold of him. And I mean, it's Jacob all the way. We're wrestling with God. Now, I'm going to ask you something that may be a bit uncomfortable, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If the emotional intensity in your prayer life dropped tomorrow, what part of you, or let me say it this way, what part of you assumes that something is wrong? Or would part of you assume that something is wrong? If emotional intensity in your prayer life dropped tomorrow, would part of you assume that something's wrong? Would you assume that God pulled back, even though his word says he's present, like Christ in us, the hope of glory? Okay, he's present. I may not always be aware of his presence, but he told his disciples, right now I'm with you. In a few days, I'm going to be in you, and I will never leave you or forsake you. Okay, so, but if emotional intensity in your prayer life dropped tomorrow, what part of you, or would part of you assume something that is wrong? Would you assume that God pulled back? Would you feel like something faded? What if I told you that that belief is actually not theological, but it's neurological. It's neurological. It's literally in your mind. And this is not just about prayer, okay? This is about what your nervous system learned that connection feels like. Now, I'm going to share a little bit of my journey with you, okay? I remember the day that I was really in what some would call a broken place, right? A broken place. I was in a prayer room, and I was just tearing up the carpet. I was ripping it up, okay? I'm literally at the proverbial wailing wall. I have really engaged. I'm going through something. Man, I found a place and I dug in and I'm God, I need you, Jesus. Lord, I love you, Father. I need you, Jesus, right now. God, I need you to move in this situation. Lord, I need you to intervene right now. Man, I'm just going at it. I'm a rocking. I'm a rolling. Okay, I'm at the proverbial wailing wall. And the Lord spoke to me and said to me, Jason, I don't talk to you like this. I want you to sit up and I want to have a conversation with you. And now I'm going to be honest, I didn't know what to do. The Lord said to me, he said, where am I? And I just kind of sat there. I was a little dumbfounded at the moment. And the Lord said, am I in you or am I outside of you? And I said, you're in me. He said, then why are you screaming as though I am not in you, but out there somewhere? And you have to do something to get me to come down. I said, well, but Lord Jesus, even you taught your disciples, pray our Father who art in heaven. He said, Jason, was that before Calvary or after Calvary? I said, that was before Calvary. He said, that's right. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are in the Old Testament. Now I am in you. This is part of the promise. I told them I would never leave them or forsake them. And the Lord said, am I in you? I said, yes. He said, so I am present even when you don't feel anything. I will never leave you and I will never forsake you. Prayer is talking to me. It's simply conversations with me. And you don't ever really engage me unless you have these kind of prayer meetings. Like it takes a real crisis to push you to this place of desperation. And touching me only happens with intensity. But I just want you to know intensity does not equal intimacy. I want that to land for just a minute. Just because I'm steady doesn't mean I'm gone. Just because there's not crisis doesn't mean I'm far away. Just because you don't feel me emotionally doesn't do anything about my presence. That doesn't make me less present. I am with you and I am in you every day, all day long. I can meet you wherever you are. And then the Lord asked me a question. He said to me, he said, do you ever see children having conversations with their parents the way you're talking to me? Do I ever talk to you this way? And I'm just like, I'm having, I mean, this is a revelation that I've never seen before. And the Lord just said, Jason, forget all of the rocking, forget everything, forget having to lay flat on the floor. Could you just sit here and tell me what's going on in your heart? Let's start there. So I did. And when I did, something happened that really confused me. God was calm. The atmosphere was calm. And I knew he was there, but I felt empty. It was kind of quiet and I felt disconnected. It was almost like as if nothing dramatic was happening. I felt distance because I was equating intensity with connection. It wasn't because God didn't move, but because if my body wasn't spiking, then God wasn't moving. Like adrenaline was more of what's going on rather than intimacy with him. And I began to think about the way that people interact and conversations happen. If intensity is required to touch God, then steady and calm and flat seasons, they just feel like I can't reach him anymore. I'm far from him. Something's wrong with me, or I lost it. Well, it's not an it, it's a him. And this is not based on me. This is based on him. He said he would be present. Paul told Timothy, even when you're not faithful, he is faithful because he's going to be faithful to his own name. It's his own name's sake. He promised to be faithful. When you lose the fireworks, then you think you've lost your faith. And this was such a challenge for me. Or you think you've done something wrong, or you think that you are off because you believe that connection must be intense in order for it to be real. I want to show you something. Lord, I love you and I thank you. I thank you for this day, and I thank you for these good people that are joining me on this live today. Help us to connect and just help us to learn you and know you. And that's really what we want. I thank you for them. I just talked to the Lord. That was literal interaction with him. There was no workup. There was no runway. There was no, I don't feel hair standing up on the back of my neck, but I'm aware that there is a background presence. He's always with me. When you think that connection must be intense to be real, that can be so destructive to your walk with God and to your marriage. Okay? Now, it was difficult for me to grasp, and I'll tell you why. Because if the emotional intensity would drop, the relationship is gone. Now, I'm going to tell you where that developed in my life. That developed in my childhood. It didn't develop in the church. It can develop in the church, but it developed in my childhood. When I grew up, connection with my father and mother was so inconsistent. Anytime I did get to connect to them, it was an emotional experience, often a negative one. It was born in crisis, or it was crisis-based, and definitely performance-based. Like I didn't get to connect, and if I did certain things, then I would get more connection. So I had to earn it. But my body learned that intensity equals connection, and that calm equals distance. And when this is how you're raised, when things are steady then, and things are quiet, and things are uneventful, your body actually says something's wrong here. It's too quiet. Where did the closeness go? There's no closeness because there's no intensity. even if nothing is wrong, your body can panic in peace. Isn't that crazy? That your body can actually panic when there's peace. Like peace is what's supposed to make you feel safe. But when there's peace, your body's panicking because peace is new. Intensity is the obvious proof of love. Like if someone's not intense toward you, there's no love there. Intensity is proof of safety. Intensity is proof of connection. Well, I got a revelation. God is near me. God is in me. I can't get any closer to him. I mean, water baptism put me into Christ. Spirit baptism put Christ into me. Can I get any closer to him? I'm not getting any closer to him by reading this Bible. I can know him more, but you can't get any closer. The first 300 years of Christians didn't have a written Bible. Okay? Now, I'm not saying they didn't have texts and they didn't have, but most of them were Gentile, 98% illiterate. They learned to communicate with him and to have dialogue with him as a father. They learned to interact with him, okay? You didn't get closer and nearer. He's in me. I'm in him. That's steady. He never leaves me. He doesn't forsake me. He is present even when there's no manifestation. He is not anxious. God doesn't need adrenaline in order to be accessed, okay? He requires just presence. I'm here. I'm with you. I love how Paul says it. He says, we are changed. The word there's transformed from image to image, like glory to glory. How? Beholding his face. It's like when I become aware, he's never leaving. I become less aware and more aware, but he's never left. He requires presence, and presence is often very quiet. Okay? If God is only reachable through emotional intensity, well, here's the damage with that. Then he becomes to us reactive. So he's only with us when we have to entertain him to get him. Okay, it's like the prophets of Baal calling on Baal, answer us. Like, so we have to proverbially cut ourselves to get his attention. Okay, God, then he's distant, right? Unless he's activated, which is totally contrary to what his word says that he is. He's moved by volume. Like the louder we get, the more spiritual we are because the more he answers. Okay, he's triggered by our demonstration. So we always say this, when the praises go up, God's glory comes down. Okay, well, in the Old Testament, he did inhabit the praises of his people, but in the New Covenant, he inhabits the praisers. He's in us. That's where he's at. Okay, and so if we don't address this, then what this leads to over time, and I've experienced it in deep ways, and I want to help you with it because you'll get into spiritual burnout. You'll get into emotional exhaustion. You'll get into marriage instability, okay? When you think that intensity is connection, well, when life is just, life is kind of just boring or just steady and just uneventful, you'll feel like, well, there's just no connection, no closeness. Everything's in danger now, right? You get this addiction to intensity, and you get this difficulty where you can't tolerate calm, and you can't meditate on the Lord, and you can't just spend time being present with him because he's always present. And there's this confusion that happens between activation and intimacy. Like we think activating our body equals intimacy when it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And sometimes people walk away when life becomes quiet because they feel like God is left, because they were never taught to tolerate steady love. Now, am I saying that intensity is wrong? No. And they prayed in the house until everything was shaken. I get that. There are seasons and moments of loud prayer and tears and passion, and I'm getting that. But the common rule is sonship, where I am walking with him. I'm not talking about gathering with other believers. I'm talking about walking with him. The challenge in my childhood was no one ever taught me how to walk with the Lord, talk with the Lord, interact with the Lord. It took me 15 years of living for God to actually learn to hear his voice consistently as Father. Now, I heard him in the prophetic. He would speak to me things, and I would get a word of knowledge and a word of wisdom, and God would give me discernment, but it was God. You know, I had a relationship. I had transactions with God, minimal relationship. Like I would see glimpses of him, you know, like Song of Solomon. I would see him through the lattice. Okay. Like there was some intermittent intimacy there with God as my Father, but I never called myself a son of God. In fact, that was kind of awkward, probably because of father wounds in my life and other things that happened. But I get it. There are seasons of loud prayer. There's tears, there's passion, but intensity is expression. It's not access. You do not touch God by volume. You touch him by presence. I want to say that again. Someone put that in the comments. You touch him by presence. You don't touch God by volume. You touch him by presence. Presence is sustainable. Intensity is not. I can be present with him in the car. I can be present with him on the couch. I can be present with him walking down the hallway. I can be present with him. Just a few moments ago, I just stopped and set my mind, beholding his face. That's abiding in him, eating from him, interacting with him. But for someone who has not experienced calm, steady presence in their life, a drop in intensity can actually feel like, well, it would feel like for me, like when my parents would withdraw, or someone's becoming distant, or it's the beginning of rejection. Just calm and steady and quiet actually equaled withdrawing and distant and rejection. They're not the same thing. So a steady presence actually caused me to brace myself, because it's not because I believed God left. It was because my nervous system remembered loss and my body was reacting to my history, not the present relationship that I have with him. And so in my life, intensity became proof. If the only times you really feel deeply connected to someone is when there's emotional highs and crisis bonding and powerful spiritual moments, well, your brain is going to encode something there. That intensity equals attachment. So if there's no intensity, there's no attachment. But quiet then, if intensity equals attachment, then what does quiet equal? It equals disconnection. So when prayer becomes calm, you feel uneasy. Not because God left, but because you're losing the old way you knew how to connect. And when you come into a church atmosphere or childhood into other relationships, and you learn that intensity doesn't always equal intimacy or connection, that activation doesn't mean you're having a move of God, but intimacy means being present with him and just interacting with him. And prayer is dialoguing with him, conversing with him, hearing from him, seeing from him. You might be losing the old way that you knew how to connect. And now anytime that you lose something, there's kind of a grief that goes with that, okay? Because intensity always gave me certainty. It didn't always give me intimacy with God, but it gave me certainty. It was also involved in an act of faith. I mean, for me, I would get intense, and that was an act of faith for me. So many times I would experience the Lord, but I also learned that I could experience him with the exact same amount of faith in intimacy rather than intensity. Intensity was not the main ingredient. Intimacy was. Intensity can come into the picture. But for me, intensity gave me certainty. So I always had to have intensity. Well, that's not sustainable. So when intensity would lift, or the emotional high wouldn't come, or the breakthrough didn't happen, there was a problem with me. God had cut me off. God was done with me. I had done something wrong. I was being punished. Okay? But you have to learn something new. You know what you're learning is that presence does not always come with fireworks. When I interact with my wife throughout the day, presence doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's just steady. It's quiet. It's calm. That's safe. Okay? But here's the thing. What is safe feels unsafe if you're not used to it. So you literally have to learn that steady, calm presence is the go-to. That you can interact with him in a steady, calm way all day long, every day, and now you go from having a prayer life to having a life of prayer. One of the men that really helped me with this was T.F. Tenney. One time T.F. Tenney said, I seldom pray for 30 minutes, but he said, I seldom pray for 30 minutes, but I seldom go 30 minutes without prayer. What he was saying was, I've learned to talk to the Lord as Father and interact with him consistently. And there are times when I will have intensity, but it's not intensity. That's not the main ingredient. It's intimacy. So performance gives you control. And that's just true. Performance gives you control, and intensity gives you certainty. Okay, so this is just another layer here. Performance giving you control. If I can pray correctly, if I can hope correctly, if I can feel correctly, okay, then I feel safe. When I stop performing, I lose control. Now I can't determine the outcome. And when you expose yourself to God and you will become vulnerable, or how I say it this way, when you just open up and become intimate with God, that feels vulnerable before it feels peaceful. It doesn't feel peaceful immediately because control feels safer than trust until you experience steady love, which I had never. So it's kind of like this. It's like, let me say it this way, if I could. If you lived next to a busy highway, your whole entire life, the noise is just constant. I mean, it's always there, okay? It's stressful, it's loud, but you know what? It is familiar, isn't it? And now you've moved to the country. Now, is it quieter in the country? Yeah, it is. It's peaceful. But you know what your body keeps waiting for? Traffic. Nothing's wrong. But literally people move to the country and say it's too quiet. But your system hasn't adjusted to quiet yet. Your system has to adjust to quiet, steady, calm. That is actually relationship. Think of any relationship that's intense all the time. Do you want that? Good morning, babe. How you doing today? What are you going to do? Oh, every time you talk to one another. What would you do right now if I said, let me see someone who's on here with me. All right, Thomas. Here we go. Okay, and I said, hey, if I called you on the phone, Brother Thomas, and I said, hey, Thomas, this is Jason. I'm just calling right now. I just wanted to call you on the phone, and I just wanted to tell you that I love you, and I thank God for you, and I just, I want to go out this afternoon, and would you like to get a burger? Get a burger. That the intensity is not intimacy. But I could call him on the phone and say, hey, brother, I was just thinking about you. Wanted to talk with you. I really would like to spend some time with you this afternoon. What are you doing? Do you see the difference? Okay. Oftentimes we don't know how to have relationships without intensity because we think intensity equals connection. And so when we get married, we're expecting intensity all the time, but we feel like we're rejected. We feel like we're disconnected. We feel like because the intensity is not there. Well, relationships are calm and steady and quiet. That's true intimacy. Okay? Now, I'm going to get real personal on that level because this didn't just show up in my prayer life or it also, let me say, it showed up in my marriage. The belief that if intensity drops, that the relationship is gone. Okay? That's how I attached to my wife. So there were seasons when things felt calm between us. No big conflict, no drama, just steady. And instead of feeling safe, I felt uneasy. I felt unwanted. I felt disconnected. I felt like something was off. Okay. And then I would feel that. And when I felt that internal panic, I would pursue her. And then when I would pursue that intensity, sometimes even by like creating an issue, like bringing up an issue or bringing up being passive aggressive or whatever, because she wasn't loving me the way I thought things were not intense. Okay. But then when that didn't work and she wouldn't respond to that intensity, then I would withdraw. And when I felt that internal panic, I would pull back, not loudly, not dramatically, right? Just subtly. And that created issues. And the reason for that is there's a cost for withdrawal. Protection can become isolation if you don't re-engage. Okay? We're called to engage one another. What I should have done is just told her, hey, I'm feeling unsure right now. I'd like to spend a little bit of time with you. Okay? Or could you just kiss me right here? That's a good one. I mean, instead of withdrawing and wasting 3 days. When you withdraw, if your spouse is anxious, your spouse, then that withdrawal will produce anxiety in them. And they'll start scanning. Did I do something wrong? Why are they quiet? Why is he pulling away? And your fear of losing connection creates fear in them. So you withdraw so that they pursue. It's kind of like Pac-Man. And then you brace, okay? They panic. And that spiral actually costs intimacy. It creates a chaos, okay? Now, if your spouse is avoidant, if your spouse leans avoidant, they may not chase you. So you withdraw and they give you the space you want, but then now you feel resentful because they didn't chase you, because honestly, you were actually testing them. So why aren't they coming after me? Why don't they notice me? They don't love me. They're so cold. They're so this, they're so that. No, you withdraw. They give space. You feel unseen. They feel calm. And then resentment just grows quietly inside of you. And every time I would withdraw myself, I would train my marriage to brace. And every time I stayed present through discomfort, I trained my marriage to relax. So here's the thing. I want to talk to you, and I'm about to end this, but I'm not talking about behavioral control. I want to talk to you about capacity building. Now, when I talk about building your capacity, here's what I mean. If this coffee cup is filled with hot coffee, and I hold it with my fingertips and walk around on my tippy toes, more than likely I'm going to burn myself. Well, I am. Okay, my fingertips are going to get burned, and the unsteadiness of my gait or my walk is going to cause this coffee to spill at the top and burn my hand, most likely. Okay, but if I leave the same coffee in the cup and I use the handle and walk flat-footed, now I learn to carry this differently. Okay, now the danger goes down because I'm learning to carry it differently. That's what I mean when I talk about building capacity. Okay, building capacity is increasing your tolerance for calm, continuing to talk to the Lord even when it's just steady and there's no fireworks. Okay, slowing down and just entertaining and becoming aware of his presence. Okay, you don't stop withdrawing by willpower. You increase your tolerance to not withdraw. So I want to kind of help you with this for just a minute. Maybe give you a few things that you can use that will help you this week. When you feel the urge to pull away, okay, why don't you just decide to stay for 90 seconds? Stay in the discomfort of the calm, okay? Just put your hand on your chest and just tell yourself, this is discomfort, it's not danger. And don't do anything. Don't text, don't test, don't withdraw. Just stay. Stay for 90 seconds. You're literally teaching yourself that you can stay in what's uncomfortable, and that discomfort will actually prove to be safe over time. All right? When you feel like God is not responding to you, when there's no fireworks, I'm asking you to stay there. Don't pull away. Don't stop. Don't get up and say, what's wrong with me? No, oppose those stories. When you think, man, something's wrong with me. I messed up. God ain't with me. No, wait a second. Lord, you said you're with me. You're not going to leave me. You are faithful to me. You love me. It's okay right now. I'm okay. Uh, I just want to thank you for your presence. Okay. Uh, when you're with your spouse, if you feel like pulling away, name it instead of acting on it. Just because it's present doesn't mean it leads. If you want to withdraw, that doesn't mean you have to withdraw. It just means that that's data. You want to withdraw. Doesn't mean you have to obey it. Okay? Look at your spouse and speak directly. I'm feeling a little unsure right now. That's the whole conversation. Just leave it there. It's not dramatic. It's not intense. It's just honest. Okay? Withdrawal is going to create confusion. Expression is what builds safety. All right? Sit with your spouse for 5 minutes. I remember when I started doing this, no, just silence, no phones, no talking, just proximity. It used to really bother me, but that I would sit with my wife and I wanted to engage, I wanted to talk, and she'd just be like sitting there, not, just nonchalant. And I'm like, what's wrong with this cold woman? She wasn't cold. She was just steady. Okay. Just see, your body expects something bad to happen. But if you just learn to sit in the calm, you're going to learn calm does not equal distance. Okay? Another thing, if you want to provoke intensity to feel connected, don't do it. You want to provoke an argument, provoke a disagreement, provoke something to kind of create some kind of intensity. Just wait 10 minutes. Go find you a journal and write down, what am I afraid is happening right now? What do I need right now? Go to the Lord, talk to the Lord about it, engage him. And then after 10 minutes, then just look at your spouse and say, hey, are we okay? See, because if you test them by pulling away, that's going to create chaos. But if you're direct about asking things, that's just going to build security and safety. Okay? So when you feel these things like, I messed up, or you feel these things like I'm cut off, God's done with me, I'm so awful, just stop. Steady does not mean gone. Steady does not mean gone. The Lord is with me. Father, you are with me. Thank you. See, you're going to rewire your understanding of him through sonship and being his child, repetition over and over again, over and over again. All right? And of course, all of this applies in your prayer life. Okay? Instead of having a prayer life defined by systems or books and I'm not nothing wrong with any of that. I mean, I've prayed through the tabernacle. I've done the circle wheel of prayer, 5 minutes of each thing. I've done sweet hour prayer, 30 minutes of prayer. I've done all of that. But I will say this. There's no replacement for intimacy. And my life of prayer is not defined by anybody else's definition except the Lord's. And that is, he's in me, and prayer is conversation with him. So when it's quiet, stay. When it's calm, stay. When it's not intense, stay. Because quiet prayer is not dead prayer. Steady does not mean he's gone. Now I'm going to close this today by saying some of us are not afraid of losing love. We're afraid of love becoming quiet. But secure attachment and sonship sounds like this. Connection can be calm. Somebody put that in the comments. Connection can be calm. Presence can be quiet. Love can be steady. And steady does not mean gone. You're not losing God. You are unlearning instability. You're not losing your marriage. You're building capacity for connection that is steady and present and calm. And slow connection is actually sustainable connection. So I just wanted to spend some time sharing this with you today, and I pray that it was a blessing to you. If you would like to schedule a session with me and dig deeper in this in your own personal, private, spiritual world or marriage and relationships, well, reach out. God bless you all today and have a wonderful night. God bless.